If you haven't submitted one yet, you've seen how it runs now. It's pretty simple. It's not that scary. If you haven't done one before, you'll definitely get benefit. It means people tonight will know who you are, what you look like, and can come up and have a chat to you. So take a photo, please submit one. Up first we have Arnold Nipper. Arnold wears a few hats, but he's talking today about PeeringDB. So please welcome Arnold up, and please do submit a peering personal.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon. So I'm Arnold Nipper. I'm from DE-CIX, but I'm also working for PeeringDB. I just want to give a quick update on PeeringDB, starting with a quick recap what PeeringDB is. So PeeringDB basically is a database where you can find all the information you need for interconnection, I would say, not only for peering. So what information is that? Basically, the reason PeeringDB started is because networks needed information on how to interconnect to each other. So basically, this is information about networks. Then, of course, networks are located in facilities and collocations. You find information about collocation, and last but not least, you also find information about internet exchange points. And then, of course, for networks, you also have point of contacts, and for the internet exchange points, you find a list of which peers are at these internet exchange. For facilities, you also find where the facility is and which networks are at the facilities. So, and nowadays, everything goes automation, and therefore PeeringDB both has a graphical user interface, which is meant for the human beings, and then, of course, also has a nice API so that you can integrate PeeringDB in your business systems and retrieve information and also manipulate information to PeeringDB and to configure your routers, your business systems, whatever. Also, the large networks, they rely on PeeringDB because they have to set up BGP sessions, they have to maintain BGP sessions, and that would be impossible if they would have to look it up every time by a human being. And therefore, they say, okay, we are willing to peer with you. We have an open peering policy. But to do so, you have to have a PeeringDB record and a well-maintained PeeringDB record. That means you not only have to put in your network record, your AS number, but you also have to put in which peering, the IRR set, the AS set. You have to put in the NOC contacts, and this has to be up to date. Otherwise, you simply cannot get further. So they point you to their portal, you have to type it in, they check it automatically, and then it goes further. So for everyone, it is useful to be on PeeringDB. For those who have an ASN, either you peer, or even if you don't peer, you at least have two upstreams. In most cases, you are also in a facility. Perhaps you also want to interconnect privately with someone else. So please show where you are. This helps you, that you can be found by others, and this also makes you known to others. So what is behind PeeringDB? PeeringDB was created roughly 16 years ago, as said by some nice guy who said, okay, we have to have something to store this information. And roughly 5 years ago, people found out that it's really a critical infrastructure for the interconnection industry, and therefore the PeeringDB Association was founded. It's an association based in the US, and it's quite easy to become a member of the PeeringDB. The only thing you have to do is you have to have a PeeringDB record. It's quite easy because either you have an ASN, you run an IXP, or run a facility. And then the second thing you have to do, you only have to subscribe to our government mailing list. And bam, then your organization automatically is a member of PeeringDB. Does it cost money to be a member? No, it doesn't. Neither we have a membership nor the usage of PeeringDB costs any money. Of course, running PeeringDB costs money, but I will tell you later how we deal with that. As an association, of course, it had the board. The board takes care for the overall duties. It sets a strategic direction. It takes care that there is enough money, but the day-to-day work for PeeringDB is run by the so-called committees. So there are 4 committees. There is our support department, which we call admin committee. They have to deal with each new request. If you want to enter something in PeeringDB, be it an ASN, a new facility, or an IXP, this automatically will create a ticket for the admin committee, and they have to deal with it. Of course, we also have an infrastructure, and this is what the operations committee takes care of. Meanwhile, the infrastructure runs in the cloud. We have several servers. We have a database service, of course, the web servers distributed on several systems, and this is what the operations committee has to take care of. Then the outreach committee in a company, you would call it our marketing department. The outreach committee, for example, creates a presentation, looks around at what events we probably show up, takes care of swag, for example, like this, or what Gavin also has is nice t-shirts. We have stickers, everything. This is what the outreach committee does. And last but not least is the product committee. So PeeringDB itself is a software. It has bugs, but it also, what we would like to do is to develop PeeringDB. So it was created, we completely rewrote it 4 years ago, but every user almost has an idea what we should incorporate. So if you have an idea, please let us know. We are using GitHub. You simply have to have a GitHub account, open an issue, tell us what you like, what you don't like as well, and the product committee then will take care of it. This is just a graphic to show you how PeeringDB developed in terms of support tickets. I mentioned before, every request for adding an item to the DB creates a ticket. So typically, if you read about support tickets, that means that the user runs into a bug. This is not the case for PeeringDB. It's just, in most cases, it is that someone wants to add a new record. And as you can see, I already told, we completely rewrote the interface and how the GUI looks like, and this was in 2016, actually on 16 March of 2016, and you can see since then it has even increased, both the number of tickets and also, we'll show later, the number of records which are in PeeringDB. So this is just an idea how PeeringDB grow over the years. We have information at the launch in 2016, for example. We had roughly 6,000 networks, and end of 2019, we tripled the amount. That means people really see the advantage, the benefits of PeeringDB. They record their entities over there. It's the same with, for example, facilities. It almost doubles. And same as organization. It's the same. Same with users. So with PeeringDB, what we also introduced is really the concept of users. You do not really have to have a user account, all of the information besides the point of contact, because this might be used for spam. Point of contact information might be hidden to only to users, but everything else, like about networks, about facility, internet exchange point, which network is connected to which internet exchange point, is absolutely public. I mentioned that the usage of PeeringDB is free of money. The same is for the membership. And to recover the cost, we rely on sponsorship. There are several sponsorship levels, beginning as low as $200 per month and going up to $25,000 per year. I mentioned that especially the NAT network, they are benefiting heavily from PeeringDB, and therefore, for example, you can see Microsoft, and there are others, they are diamond sponsors. They save money, and in return, they are also willing to give money. Not only Microsoft, but you see Amazon also does. We limited the numbers of diamond sponsors to 2 to give them exclusivity, but platinum sponsors, gold sponsors, silver sponsors, there might be unlimited. And as you can see, we have a lot of sponsors. Thank you to all of them. You help us to run PeeringDB, and meanwhile we also built quite a good reserve, which lasts at least for 2 years, so that we are pretty sure that PeeringDB will around next year and also the year after next year. So I already mentioned the product development, and I will talk about a little bit in detail how this product development workflow is. So all issues are tracked in GitHub. So either if you want to file a bug report or have an issue, you open a feature request in GitHub, and then we have several stages over here, which are called. So first, we talk about, we have to decide, and the product committee, at least 3 of the product committee have to also say yes, we want this feature, and as soon as they say yes, then it goes to the next stage to consensus reached, and as soon as we have consensus reached, all of the other members of the product committee can say, oh, I'm not happy with that, and we then have a period of 5 working days where they can say yes or no, and if they say no one says is against it, then it will automatically goes to the next stage, which is where we discuss the exact implementation discussion. So sometimes an issue looks more or less trivial, but if you think a little bit more about it, then it turns out that it needs more discussion on this. And this is where we do that. And if we are finalized with that, it goes to the next stage, which is ready for implementation. It is implemented. We give it to our vendor, which currently only is 20C. And as soon as the implementation is ready, then it will probably be rolled out with the next release. And then it gets next release, and then it's done. As said, if you have an idea cannot be silly, it's your idea, and you have a good opinion about that, just let us know, and you definitely will get feedback on that. So we try to have a release almost every month, and with the new workflow process, we are also able to really work on issues quite fast. So we still have 160 issues queued up. This comes from almost 3 or 4 years, but we are working on it to get this queue as short as possible. So releases are also on Wednesday morning at 4 o'clock Zulu, and what having it on Wednesday avoids having it on Monday or Friday, which are always bad days to do so, and which we also try to avoid is international holidays and also large conferences, because then at large conferences a lot of engineers might be over there and might not be able to give attention to it. Yeah, that's it. Then you are able to see the latest development on our beta server. The beta server also has the next release running roughly 2 to 3 weeks before, and you can test out your software, whether it still is compliant with PeeringDB, or if there is a feature which breaks your software. And the beta server is both accessible via the graphical user interface as well as via the API. And to see the latest changes, you only have to get to beta.peeringdb.com changes, and then you see all the issues which will be incorporated in the next release. So the recent development highlights is that we also want to diversify on our vendor. This is, as said, we currently only have one vendor, and we want to have at least another, or maybe also a third one, because there is still a lot of work to do, and it's always good not only to rely on one vendor. Then, as I already said, is we worked out a new decision-making process on the issues, and that turned out that we really speed up everything. We also worked on the translation. So PeeringDB initially was only available in English. Meanwhile, it's available in Portuguese since, I guess, 2 to 2.5 years. And it's also available in up to, I guess, 15 languages meanwhile. And what we also do is, if you want to translate it to your language, just let us know. It's as easy as open an issue in PeeringDB, say, I want to translate it, then we will copy it to the translation server, then you'd start to translate, and as soon as you start the translation will also already be available on the beta server. And if it reaches 80% of translation, then we will copy it to the production server. Which also got a lot of discussion is the so-called data ownership. So where is the problem with data ownership? So there is no problem with records like the facility. It's clear this belongs to the facility owner. The same is for networks. It belongs to the networks. But there are also objects which have more than one owner, so to say. And a prominent record is the so-called NetIXLAN. The NetIXLAN described the connection of a network to an internet exchange. And if you look into the APA record, you find a net ID and you find an IX ID. So an NetIXLAN can only be created by nets. This is one of the paradigm, is that only the networks are able to create it. But on the other hand, the IP addresses and also the IP range clearly is defined by the IX. And what might happen is that there is a conflict over here, so that a networks put in a record, and both the network and the IX do not agree on the IP address for whatever reason. So, and therefore, we have to have something, conflict resolution. And this is why we have the data ownership task force. And this task force works since Terry, since when? September? Yeah, so since September, and deals with the data ownership. We are almost done with that, and we guess we will be finalize the work end of March, and then we will also have a solid procedure how to deal with conflict resolution. So conflict resolution also came because the IXs, there's a so-called IX agent import, so the IXs were able to import their data into PeeringDB, and the procedure we had in place was not 100% fail-safe, and this also led to deletions of NetIX LAN records. And this was the reason to talk about this, and in general, it's good to have a clear understanding who owns what, and who is able to do what. That was the updates from my side, and the last slide only simply shows further information to look into. Happy to take any questions, remarks. No? Then thank you.
Thanks, Arnold. Up next, we've got Togashi-san. Are you in the room? Ah, there he is. Togashi's from NTT, Indonesia. And he's going to have a chat about where to expand your POP to in Indonesia and some general information on the landscape in Indonesia. Please welcome.
Thank you. I think I can use this one. Okay. Okay, and back. How can I back this? Okay, let's start. Thank you for giving me time to talk about Indonesia. I think you guys feel a bit weird why the Japanese people thinking about Indonesia things. But I feel that Indonesia is a bit covered with mysterious, so I just want to share my small knowledge about Indonesia and make understanding more bit clear. This is my motivation to talk. And this is my slide, the most not interesting page. So the point is, I was working in the JPNAP team as a network operator and moved to the entity Indonesia and launched the Jakarta Internet Exchange, Jakarta Exchange. And yeah, working as a network engineer in Indonesia. Okay, next. This is what I'm going to talk here. While I'm working in Indonesia, I got frequent questions put it in here. The people are asking the same question over and over. Hi Togashi, how can I get a connection to OpenIX and the IIX? And how can we get a DC to DC connection? And which data center can we get many peers? So through these presentations, I want to answer on each questions. And the disclaimer, I will not intend to something bad or something good. I just want to share the knowledge. Maybe there is several comments, so I'm welcome to hear the Indonesian comments, or there is okay. And this is the Indonesia overview. As you may know, Indonesia is located in Southeast Asia. The capital city is Jakarta. And in Indonesia, the 260 million people are living. This is the fourth biggest country. And among of these populations, around 65 people are using the internet. The penetration rate is 65. And this penetration rate is increasing every year. The increase in ratio is 5 to 10%. This data is given from the IDNIC. Thank you very much. So by taking this positive number, people are thinking that Indonesia is an emerging market. And we got a lot inquiry recently from the ISP and the OTT content providers. Okay, this is a map of Indonesia. Indonesia is made up of the major 5 regions: Sumatra, Java. This is called Java in the international way. The Bali and Kalimantan and Sulawesi. These 5 regions. And Java, that has a capital city Jakarta, has the most internet user. 55% of the internet user is in the Java. So if you plan to come Indonesia, we strongly recommend to put the POP in the Java. Even though you like the party, I do not recommend put the POP in the Bali Island. Okay? Yes. So let's go to internet exchange in Indonesia. Here I snapshot the PeeringDB that is snapshotted on the 31 January 2020. Actually, Indonesia, there are a lot of the IX. Because I couldn't put all IX here, just to put it 6 or 7 IX. But indeed, there is a 17 IX. This, I think this is really, really huge numbers. And major IX in Jakarta is OpenIX, IIX Jakarta, CDIX, MCIX, and Jakarta JKT-IX. And the other unique point of the Indonesia Internet Exchange, mostly they are giving the IX by free of charge. So you can connect the IX by free charge. However, bit tricky. There is a requirement. Several IXP provider requires you to subscribe the IP transit, and several IXP provider require you to subscribe a colo. So please be careful at that point when you connect the IX. That is Indonesia Internet Exchange unique points. And the point is, like I said, OpenIX, NICE, and IIX Jakarta are 2 biggest IX in Indonesia. Everybody wants to connect these 2 big IX. So let's break down these 2 IX, IIX Jakarta and OpenIX. And on the PeeringDB, the IIX Jakarta has 150 members and the OpenIX has 186. But I knew that both IX has more members, and I counted up there through Looking Glass. And there are 300 neighbors and 319 neighbors on each. So there's a gap. So here is my comment to the Indonesia AS operators. Let's register on the PeeringDB more. And IIX Jakarta has a POP in the APG data center and the NTT data centers. APG, this is stands for Asosiasi. Sorry, I do not remember this in Indonesia, but this is the association of the internet operator group, internet operators. And OpenIX, they have a POP in the Duren 3 data center and IDC Cyber 1. OpenIX strongly recommend you to connect in Duren 3 data centers. Okay, then they have the raw servers and the Looking Glass. You can see the peer and the neighbors. Okay, next. So here comes the first Hey Togashi questions. Hey Togashi, how can I connect OpenIX and IIX? This is the most frequent questions because they want to connect OpenIX and IIX. And here is our answer for the first questions. To connect the IIX Jakarta, there is 3 ways. The first way is be a member of the APG association. Okay, you can, if you could be the member of the APG, you can connect the IIX. As a second way, you can connect through the JKT-IX to IIX. This is because the JKT-IX, this is operated by the entity, has a partnership with the IIX. So JKT-IX network and IX network are connected each other with the layer 2 level. So technically, the member of the JKT-IX can connect the IIX directly. Okay, and the last way, this is I think very, very exception. You can try to negotiate with APG members. I think if I'm not wrong, in this conference, there are several APG guys and you can talk if you want to connect. And when it comes to the OpenIX, if you want to connect to OpenIX, there is basically they are really neutral. As long as you could have a connection to their internet exchange facility, they are welcome to you connect. So there are two ways maybe to subscribe a core service where the OpenIX have a POP, or connecting through the local carriers. It's like a remote peering. This is first answer. Okay, and let's put the pin on the map on the Jakarta. So the matrix is IIX and the OpenIX POP. IIX Jakarta has a POP in the Cyber 1 and NTT DC Jakarta 2. And then OpenIX has a POP in Duren 3 data centers. And so from here, we can see the major IX POPs are at the center of the Jakarta. Okay, this is the Jakarta map. Let's go peering facility topic. And before talking about the peering facility, I want to you heads up about Indonesia surroundings. Things are getting better for sure. However, still there is strugglings, electric outage, flooding, cable cut down, fire incident. Please read each comment. So when it comes to electric outage, it was happened last year, August 4, 2019, last year. And with that electric outage, whole area of the Jakarta was covered with a blackout. Can you imagine that? That country has 240 million people of the capital got the electric outage, 12 hours. This is to Jakarta. So the point is, when you select a peering facility in Indonesia, please carefully select the facility level, location, incident history. This is advice. Okay, let's go to peering facility. I take the snapshot from the PeeringDB. This is sorted by the AS numbers. Is the number of the AS that located in data centers. And the data center circled with a yellow line is in Jakarta. So you can see mostly the major network data centers are in Jakarta. Okay. And when we focus the green line, this one, these three data centers. These three top data centers are located in the same area with the same postal code. Okay. This is that area, network crowded area, and we are calling this area cyber area. Okay, and data center above in this picture is NTT-Com Jakarta 2 data centers, and the picture in below is Cyber 1 building. Okay, this is the point. The Cyber 1 building, inside of the Cyber 1 building, there is a lot of the network data centers. So each floor has each data centers. And in between the NTT data centers and Cyber 1, there is only 50-meter distance. Just a walk-in with 1 minute. Okay, so the people think the people can compactly complete interconnection with a local network within these cyber areas. And but how? So this is the next Hey Togashi questions. Hey, can we get the DC to DC connection in cyber areas? Yeah. And we got actually trouble like this. Network A requests the NTT-Com Jakarta DC2 have a connection to the network B. And network B presents at the CDCI data center that is also in the cyber areas. Looks really easy because that data centers are just a 15-meter distance, just pulling the cables. But indeed, it takes, it spends 3 months. It's really horrible. And the reason was in Indonesia, still capacity-based connection was standard. When the people connect each other, they use a access line service with a capacity like a 10 meg or 50 meg that kind of the fiber connection between the network is not familiar. So it was one of the issues. So, and also because the standard is capacity-based, the data center, inter-data center connection service was not ready yet. Okay, so it should be changed if we want to be the network data centers. And we changed it. This is a current connection between the data centers. We deployed a bunch of cable between the data center in cyber areas. So the customer in the cyber area can enjoy that connectivity with just 1 year deployment, the 1 week deployment, not 1 year, 1 week deployment. So the concept of this is, this area is Indonesia network data center areas. I do not want to make the barrier between the data centers. So we deploy the cable between data centers, and as if people are using this connection as a in data center cross connect, we deployed it. So of course the price cannot be like a cross connect, but you can use this inter DC to DC connection like a cross connect. You can use this connection with the 1 week deployment. Okay, this is an improvement. Okay, so let's get back to the main topic, the where to expand your POP in Indonesia. So we add the 3 metrics presence at cyber areas. Cyber 1 Apogee data center is in the cyber area, NTT data center Jakarta 2 also in cyber area, and the CDC I data center also in the cyber areas. And I put a number, how many numbers are in each data centers. Actually, this is not the accurate, exact, correct, because the Indonesia networks not, registering the PeeringDB, but we can see the trend. Which data center has a lot of their AS? Okay, and about the facility, I do not talk about the facility level here. Okay, the next topic is the mobile carriers in Indonesia. As you may know, Indonesia, the mobile users are really dominant. Here's the statistics. The mobile user versus laptop and desktop users. The mobile users cover 91%, and the laptop and desktop only the 22%. So if you want to cover the eyeball in Indonesia, you must connect the mobile carriers. That red one, oh sorry, this one. Okay, red one, this is a Telkomsel, and the yellow one, the Indosat. And we also got a lot of the inquiry. Hey, Togashi, how can I reach out to the Telkomsel, Indosat engineers? Okay. And next slide, I did the interview with the Telkomsel and the Indosat. You can contact to each guys in the PICs if you want to have a pairing or IP. I don't know which pairing or which they give you the pairing or IP transit, but you can contact through this. The information. Okay, so let's back again. They have a POP mostly everywhere. Telkomsel, Indosat, they have POP, all their centers. So if you want to get a peer, just contact to them. So last look at question, which DC can get many peers? When we just focusing on the peers, I think we can recommend this for data centers. But when you select a data center, of course, you have to care about the price or location and the facilities. So please use this as one of the reference when you select the Indonesia data centers. Okay, let's wrap up my presentation here. OpenIX and IIX Jakarta is our 2 biggest IIX in Indonesia. And the major peering facility are in cyber areas. And to cover Indonesia eyeballs, don't forget the mobile carriers. And as a comment to the Indonesia networks, let's register on the PeeringDBs. Okay. So, thank you. I got a lot of the support from the RPG and the IDC telling us that. Thank you very much. That's it.
I have a question for you. Why do so few networks register on PeeringDB in Indonesia?
That is really, really good questions. The first, the people do not think that any benefit to register the PeeringDB. That is the biggest. And the second one is people even do know about the presence of the PeeringDBs. That is the reason why they are not registering the PeeringDB. But here is the good news. Nowadays, the big OTT has come to Indonesia, the Cloudflare and Facebook. That guys requires all AS to register PeeringDB first. So the PeeringDB penetration is getting increasing. So hopefully someday if the big OTT has come to Indonesia, all maybe increase up.
Any other questions? Great. Thanks to Togashi-san.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we've got Jonathan Brewer. I think Jonathan's wearing his NSRC hat. No? This is Jonathan's hat? No hat. No hat. Jonathan's talking to us about some connectivity in the in the Pacific region, particularly around IXPs and some cable systems.
Sweet. Is there a clicker? There's a clicker. I can kind of lean into this mic here. So, no. I mean, as you can tell from my accent, I'm a New Zealander, but it happens I live in Singapore right now. I mainly work in the New Zealand market, but I do a few things for some international development organizations, and I'm not wearing any of those hats today. I'm just me. So I'm going to talk about the Pacific. I am going to acknowledge that the research I've done on the Pacific has been funded by APRICOT Foundation, ISIF. Thank you, Team APRICOT and Associates, for the ability to go and do all this research. One big button here. All right, we're going to talk about Vanuatu first. And Vanuatu, country of 300,000 people in the Pacific. There they are under the Solomon Islands and just above New Caledonia. They've got a single cable called Interchange 1 that goes to Fiji. And this is a public-private partnership of the Fiji government and a private investor. So the Vanuatu has had an internet exchange for longer than any other country in the Pacific. They turned up their South Pacific Island, I should say. They turned up their IX in 2013, just around the same time as the Interchange 1 cable was lit up. The IX is operated by OGCIO, or Vanuatu's Office of the Government CIO. They were very fortunate in getting a cache from Google back in 2014, and that convinced a lot of the local networks to turn up and peer. Without that cache there as a carrot, we probably would not have seen such participation in the Vanuatu IX. PeeringDB is not up to date for Vanuatu IX, and their website isn't working right now, but they do have an ASN, and private conversations with Vanuatu OGCIO tell me that Telecom Vanuatu, Digicel, Telesat, SPIM, and OGCIO are peering. So these are ISPs plus the government network, and we also have Packet Clearinghouse and NetNode, and we're going to get Newstar soon, who are going to be operating .vu. So that's Vanuatu. Samoa. Now, Samoa is how big? 100,000 people fewer than Vanuatu, only 200,000 people in Samoa. But they're interesting because they're becoming a bit of a hub, a cable hub for the South Pacific. They're sitting right next to America and Samoa. They are at the moment connected to Fiji with some branches to Wallis and Futuna on a new submarine cable called the TUI cable, which has been in service for a year, maybe a year and a half. They have a piece of unrepeated dark fiber between American Samoa and Samoa called the SAS cable that backs to back with an old cable called ASH Ash is 1 gigabit per second, so it's quite slow. But the other thing that you can do if you get from Samoa to American Samoa is you can jump on Hawaiki. And Hawaiki is nice and fast and brand new, just turned up last year. So in Samoa, there is no, there is an IXP, but it doesn't appear to be functioning right now. There's no PeeringDB entry. There is an ASN. The IXAS is held by an ex-government department called Computer Services Limited, CSL. There is, and has been for years, industry and government support for an IXP. Gavin mentioned NSRC. I was with Philip Smith. Is Philip around? Anyway, I was with Philip in Samoa in 2016 when NSRC donated a couple of Nexus 3064, big old switches that had come out of Facebook's network. Thank you, Facebook. Those switches are probably still not turned on. They were turned on and configured at the time, and I think some route reflectors were turned on and configured at the time, and they were put away awaiting the completion of a government shared network and some questions about who was going to host the IXP really made it kind of messy. We think there's a root server at National University of Samoa right now. The internet kind of points that way, but no really independent confirmation. Like I couldn't figure that out from Atlas. And it's unclear when peers will turn up. But there are new cables. If I can go back, there's another new cable called Manitoua that should be turning up later this year, Q3. So that's going to be a connection to French Polynesia. Now, once you have French Polynesia, which has its own cable back to Hawaii, once you have them connected, and Fiji, and American Samoa, and New Zealand, you've got so many options. It's kind of a real logical place to have an IX where other people in the Pacific are peering. That's Samoa. Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea, completely unlike the last couple of islands, is millions of people. In fact, almost 9 million people. Very few internet users so far, but this is changing quite rapidly. We're very constrained in Papua New Guinea, and in fact, even today, I think the total bandwidth in and out of Papua New Guinea is still in the 11 or 12 gigabit per second range, and probably only using 4 or 5 gigabit of that. They have this cable called PPC-1, and it's in the north of the island in a city called Madang. The incumbent has an IRU for a wavelength on PPC-1 from Madang to Sydney. That wave is capable of supporting 10 gig and is running at 10 gig now, but until I'd say 2018, it was running at like 4 gig or something, or maybe 2.4 gig. I think it was running at 2.4 gig. So it was quite slow, and most of the people in Papua New Guinea who are connected to the internet actually live in the south of the country, and there's a mountain range in between the north and the south, and there's no fiber between the north and the south, or there wasn't until recently. So we now have a domestic terrestrial network, which is not on this map, that went into use last year in January and then broke like the next month, and then was out of commission for a few months. It's kind of unclear, but theoretically, Papua New Guinea has all 15 of their provinces connected by submarine cable to Madang and Port Moresby, and a new cable funded by the Australian government called the Coral Seas Cable Network is being built right this very minute, probably being tested and configured, which is a path southbound to Sydney. You can see Coral Seas as a Y. It branches to Solomon Islands, but the way they've structured this cable is there's one fiber pair that goes to PNG and one fiber pair that goes to Solomon Islands, and no fiber pairs that goes from Solomon Islands to PNG, sadly. But along those lines, I put this little Kumal 1 Indonesia red squiggle in there because it's evident that Papua New Guinea is going to connect their domestic submarine cable system, Kumal 1, to Indonesia. So unrepeated, lands in 15 cities around, just hops and hops and hops, and they're going to hop it over to Indonesia, which is quite a big deal because I think the Australian government really, really wanted Papua New Guinea just to connect to Australia. And that's why when the Chinese proposed building them a cable system, Australia said, and financing it, Australia said, oh, no, you don't. We're going to pay for a cable system. We want all of your traffic coming here. And then they went and did this thing to Indonesia anyway. So yay, Papua New Guinea. Good work. I think that things in Papua New Guinea are really going to advance quickly because of all this new connectivity. So PNG has an IXP. They're in PeeringDB. It is hosted by NICTA, which is the national ICT regulator for Papua New Guinea. They have, by hosting it, they have provided a room in a data center, and they've provided a radio tower, a 60-meter tall radio tower next to the room, and they've provided this basically for free. The IXP is an association. 25 organizations signed the charter a couple of years ago. Most of them are not connected yet because they can't get to the location yet. These things are changing. A lot of the ISPs that are connected are actually using radio links to that tower, but that's fine because until these submarine cables are turned off, most people are peering and doing 100 megs of traffic or 200 megs of traffic. We're not talking lots of gigs of traffic yet. We've got APCS, which is Keith Anderson's ISP, B-Mobile, Daytech, Digicel, Digitech, which is a VAR, Oceanic, which is a satellite provider, and Telecom PNG, who are the incumbent. Between Digicel and Telecom PNG, that's probably like 80 or 85% of all traffic for Papua New Guinea. There's Facebook cache. Thank you, Matt Jansen. Is Matt here? Anyway, thank you, Matt, for a Facebook cache for PNG. That was a big deal. There's a Google cache, so thank you, Donald, if Donald is around. These things have been a real driver for getting people to come and peer at the IX because when internet is super expensive, why do you want to spend money on getting to Facebook and Google when you can get it for free? There we go. Fiji. Fiji's a tenth of the size of Papua New Guinea, but I bet they're doing 20 gigs of traffic right now. I bet they're doing 5 times as much traffic as PNG, but they're 10% of the size. Anyway, Fiji is probably the most developed economy in the South Pacific. I mean, by far, they're the most developed economy in the South Pacific. They've had submarine cable connectivity for a very long time, starting with Southern Cross in 2001. They were kind of isolated, and it was very expensive to get off Southern Cross at Fiji for a very long time. Their regulators have changed pricing structures for Southern Cross and fiber access in general several times in the past 5 years. Most recently in September, October last year, removing quite an expensive tax on incoming bandwidth that was used to fund the cable landing station operations. It was based on megabits per second and was essentially adding $25 a meg of tax onto every megabit that came into Fiji, turning around and giving that to the operator of the cable landing station. Now, as we scaled from tens of megabits to hundreds of megabits to gigabits, this no longer became sustainable for anybody involved. So that's been changed, and now Fiji government has a flat interconnection fee for landing submarine cable capacity in Suva. So 5 years ago, we just had Southern Cross. In fact, I guess 2013, 7 years ago already, we just had Southern Cross. Then we got Interchange, which is a stub to Vanuatu. Around the same time, 2014, we also got Tonga Suva, which is a stub over to Tonga. And we had our north-south path to Oregon on Southern Cross and south to Sydney. But then we got this Samoa submarine cable, TUI cable, that came up 18 months ago. And that, number one, linked Fiji's second biggest island, Vanuatu. I'm afraid I've forgotten the name. Anybody know? Their second biggest island is linked via submarine fiber now, which is a big deal for Fiji. And of course, they have another path that's not Southern Cross. And it's been announced that Southern Cross is going to build another cable, and I'm sure they're going to drop into Fiji with their new cable to Southern Cross next. So in Fiji, there's no PeeringDB entry for Fiji yet. But I had some emails from Gainan at the Telecommunications Authority of Fiji. He essentially runs the IX. Had some emails from him yesterday, and he said he's working with APRICOT now to get some route reflectors and some technical help along with the IX. And as soon as they do that, they're going to get in PeeringDB and just look and feel like a grown-up first world exchange, which is going to be fantastic. At the moment, only Fijian licensed operators and companies are allowed to connect and peer at the Fiji IX. And that makes things difficult for a number of organizations I know who want to peer in Fiji. But the current state is Digicel and 3 operators that are all owned by one company called Amalgamated Telecommunications Holdings, or ATH. They're the biggest peers at the Fiji IX. University of South Pacific and Fiji National University are also peered. State-owned TV broadcaster, which is really run out of the TAF office, is also peered. And yes, as I said, overseas carriers are not allowed to peer in Fiji right now, and overseas CDNs, if they don't have a Fiji operating license, are not allowed to peer. That's just how that works. Finally, we have Guam. Guam's like the smallest of the island nations that we're going to talk about today, and the last, in case I'm running low on time. Guam's like 170,000 people, but it probably has as much traffic as Fiji, because the 170,000 people in Guam are basically all Americans. I mean, they are kind of Americans. Guam's an American territory, but there's a lot of military there. There's a lot of people who have grown up watching cable TV and Netflix and playing online games and having fiber to the home or VDSL or ADSL or whatever. They have a very, very evolved last mile access network, several of them, several 4G networks, and 5 different terrestrial fiber networks. I mean, it's an island. It's not terribly hard to do this. You can roll out fiber. One of the companies did a shallow trenched. They just bought some shallow trenching gear and plowed down the middle of the roads and put some microtubes in, and they had a backbone. Pretty cool. So Guam is uber connected. Guam is like the most connected place in the world. It hasn't helped them with their internet prices yet, because most of the bandwidth actually goes in one cable and out another cable in the same landing station. Even though there are 5 different networks, terrestrial networks within Guam, it's really hard to get from one cable landing station to another cable landing station, because the market has always supported just crazy, crazy pricing, because the biggest customer for dark fiber on the island is the US military, and they just have no idea when it comes to money. You know, $5 million, whatever, you know, tick, there you go. Guam has cables. They've got Asia American Gateway that goes to Hawaii, then California, and then in the other direction it goes on to the Philippines, Hong Kong, and then all the way out to Singapore and Malaysia. Goki, Guam, Okinawa, Kyushu, Incheon cable actually only goes to Kyushu. No, it stops. It goes to Okinawa and Kyushu, and I think the U.S. military is the really only customer of that. TGNTP goes to Togashi in Japan. If you ever look at a map of Guam and you look at how the cables are laid out, it might look like you can get on TGN Inter-Asia from Guam. You can't. Actually, you actually have to go all the way to Toyohashi and then back before you get on the Inter-Asia cable. So add 30 or 40 milliseconds of latency you weren't expecting. There's Australia-Japan cable, which goes to, of course, to Japan and to Sydney. It's really cool. I'm just going to talk about the cable for a second here. It has 2 landings, and so it's kind of like a ladder topology. So you can lose one landing station or the other landing station. You can lose a north or a south. You can actually, it has a very high level of resiliency, and it'll keep going. So that's pretty cool. We've got another cable here called CUS, which California, Hawaii, and then Guam. And then it goes on to Philippines and Indonesia. goes to the south of the Philippines into Davao, but it has a couple of branch units, one that branches off to Federated States of Micronesia, and one that branches off to Palau. So heaps and heaps and heaps of transit here, transport here. Hard to get transit, easy to get transport in Guam. And there's another couple of cables that aren't on here because they're not finished yet. CUS was put together by a company called RTI, RAM Telecommunications International. RTI has new cables going Guam to Hong Kong and new cables going Guam to Australia. And significant for Australia, the RTI Guam to Australia cable is going to drop in both Sydney and Brisbane. So it's going to be Brisbane's first submarine cable, which big deal for Brisbane, yay. All right. So what do we have going on in terms of peering? And 1 year ago, nothing. So when we were in Daejeon in Korea for APRICOT last year, there was this concept of the MARIX, the Marianas Islands Internet Exchange, and the great story here is that the Guam Internet Exchange name was taken by a defunct carrier, IX, that never went anywhere. So they called this the MARIX, and it was operated by the University of Guam, and 1 year ago it had 0 peers. Thank you to the content development, content distribution networks, in this case Cloudflare. Cloudflare's offer of a cache convinced the incumbents to connect and peer at the IX. So Docomo Pacific, Guam Telephone Authority, IT&E are connected and peered. I'm told that PDS is now connected and peered. So that's 4 of 5 of Guam's telcos. The only one missing there is a small cellular operator that really just focuses on SIM cards for Japanese and Korean tourists. So really you've got most of the access networks are now peered. Hurricane Electric has turned up and they're peering. Yeah, openly, yay, HE, yay, okay. And coming soon, Cloudflare. It's kind of a stone soup thing going on here. We told everybody that Cloudflare was going to be there, so they all turned up. Now Cloudflare's coming, so. Problems left in, everyone is allowed in to peer at MARIX. It doesn't matter if you're not a national carrier. You don't need any sort of license in Guam or the United States to turn up and peer. So if you want to come and peer from Japan, I think it would be a great idea to buy some capacity on TGNTP if you're a Japanese carrier. Fantastic idea because there's a huge amount of Japanese tourists who go to Guam because it can be, I don't know, really cold in Tokyo, like freezing, and you get on a plane and like 2.5 hours later you're in Guam on the beach and it's beautiful. So lots and lots of Japanese tourists, lots of Korean tourists, really good capacity on 3 different cables to Japan, so it would make sense for a Japanese operator to come down. And in fact, Docomo Pacific is owned by Docomo, but Docomo isn't peering in Guam yet, so whatever. And Docomo Pacific's transit is all westbound to the U.S. and eastbound to the U.S. and westbound to Hong Kong. It is hard to get from PETA Cable Landing Station to other cable landing stations and hard to get there from there to the MARIX, but that is changing. And finally, there's one last IX there called GoRex, which is for research and education. And at the moment, University of Hawaii, I think, and University of Guam are appearing there, and that's about it. But hopefully we'll see organizations like Australia's ARNet, who have capacity through Guam, breaking out of their patch cable at Tata PD Cable Landing Station and going all of 20 kilometers away so that they can peer with these local networks. That'd be really awesome. I think that is it for my slides. I'm going to thank APNIC again and the ISIF Foundation again. And if there are any questions, you do it now or do it later? Do it now? Anybody want to peer in the Pacific? Yeah? All right. Do you have a question? Question for Walt? Yeah?
How difficult is it to get a license to peer in Fiji?
How difficult is it to get a license to peer? What you actually need is a license to be a carrier in Fiji, and I believe it's an administrative process. I don't think it's like an act of parliament or anything super difficult. Fiji does have liberalized telecommunications, so there's probably a fee. It's probably thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars. You may have to establish a local entity. This isn't a law at the moment. This is a preference of the IX and the preference of the local regulator. It's not coded in law that you have to be a Fijian carrier to peer, but that's how they're running the IX right now. This could change. Hello, Tom.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Can you introduce me to the guys in PNG?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, we better leave it there. Thanks,
Thanks,
Jonathan. Next up, we have Walt Wolny from Hurricane. Walt's going to chat with us about peering security. Please welcome Walt.
Well, I can't let this empty mic go to waste. So I just want to leave an impression with everyone that, time on this earth is short. There's been a lot of deaths that have been happening. So make sure you spend time and tell your family that you love them, right? Because we're on the planes a lot, and it could be any day that we are no longer here. So take the time to say, I love you, the people that you care about, and make sure your family knows that you love them, and that's why we work. Anyway, emotional waltz, yeah, hey. So this talk was actually inspired by Tom Paseka a couple of years ago, and it's been polished over time, and let's just dive right into it. So I think everyone in the room pretty much knows me. I've been with Hurricane for 5 years now. We're on 225 internet exchanges and growing by a couple every month. I don't think I'll ever catch up to Tom, but the good thing is we are in Guam before he is. So shout out to Tom with his amazing growth. Before that, I was with Amazon for 4 years, and I developed almost all of the interconnection throughout APAC, including India and Australia. Microsoft for 13 years, and that was a really good 13 years of my life. So our backbone, as we said before, we just went live in Guam. I think it was about 3 weeks ago. And so we're actively looking to peer on the exchange. So you guys are happening there. Just drop peering@he.net an email or chase myself or Susan Forney down, and we'll be happy to bring up any sessions you have. So a question that's often said is, why are we on so many internet exchange? To beat Tom, yeah, good one. But Tom has beat us by about 6 right now, and today we're at 225, as I said before. So why so many exchanges? Connectivity is the answer, because everyone knows that when your network's connected to more ASNs, the better things will perform, the more throughput you get, and just how connectivity flows. One thing I don't talk about very often is that we do not prefer to peer with route servers. We only send a subset of our routes through route servers because we much rather have a bilateral relationship, so that way we have a name, an email address, and a face. And that way when things aren't working well, we know who to talk to, and vice versa. So before we start, we all live in glass houses. So don't throw rocks and offer to help instead of throwing a rock. This is so important, I'm going to repeat it again. We all live in glass houses, or as in the Bible it says, those without sin should throw the first stone. We're all guilty. So this is not my intent to call people out. I'm just going to expose things that I think that need to be fixed. So drop that rock and offer to help. So what does security have to do with peering? As you know a lot now, over the last few years, there's been significant route leaks and hijacks that have impacted the internet quite a bit. So before we go into that, let's just go over some of the basics that all of you IXP operators and all you network operators should really consider. So the best defense for your network, we're going to talk about logical port security, IP subnet security, routing security, and one of our newest tools is routing.he.net. So a lot of different internet exchanges already have posted standards. One of the most important thing is like proxy ARP. I'm not going to read these slides to you because you can read them and download them later. But it's really important that you do standard ACLs, so you announce only your space, and you want to make sure you reject like default route and other things before it coming into your network. As you know, the IX is an exposed piece of the network, so we should do whatever we can to protect it. Because when you're on an exchange, you're not only having one network attached, you're having up to 1,000 if you're in Brazil. So security is very important. So let's remove the security risk. So why do we care? A lot of talks go on and on, but there's never really any meat to why we should care. It's not too long ago that my friends at APRICOT actually had an impact caused by proxy ARP that lasted for an hour and a half. The root cause, human error. The port was being tested, it tested clean, it moved from the protection LAN or the testing LAN into production, and once it was production, someone made a fat finger and removed the proxy ARP limitation. So something that could have been avoided, just there was a little automation to remove a port once it went back in production. So one person in Europe, and unfortunately my friends at BBIX, the same thing happened. Proxy ARP, human error, impact 40 minutes. This is real impact to the entire exchange. So what can we do as IX operators? Well, when there's a port that's erring or advertising or sending packets that it shouldn't be, there should be an automated process to disable that port. Because when your port's disabled, the person that's responsible for the bad behavior will immediately fix it, or their port will be down and no routing or no BGP or nothing will happen on that port if it's disabled. This should be an automated process and automatically go off whenever there's a case situation like that. Subnets. So every single IX in the room has a subnet. As you know, this port and IP addresses can be a source or a target of a DDoS attack. Applying the best security practice will help limit this exposure. It's IX operators' responsibility to protect us from ourselves, because as you go through and look at the different exchanges around the world, there's several different ISPs that are common misbehaviors that are constantly advertising the subnets of the IXs. So we check this. Here's an example of JPNAP, and this is my peering address. And lo and behold, there are several people advertising it. And this should never be happening. I've already contacted people in the past, and I hope that sometime they'll fix it. The S's that are guilty of advertising, and this should never be happening. So the IX LAN is not your IP space, and you should not be routing it. So let's take a look at some of the smaller guys in Europe. Red means they're advertising, or somebody on that LAN is advertising. Greens means it's passing, and there's no advertisement of the block. So some of the big guys in Europe. Pretty surprising, right? All right, nice. So what about Oceania? Any guess? Who thinks it's going to be nice and clean? Nah, nice. It's actually a lot better than I thought. I gave this talk about a year ago in New Zealand, and the majority of it was being advertised. So a shout out to everyone that's fixed that. Raf, I know you will, sir. There's a very simple tools out there that will allow you to monitor your exchange. BGP Mon, unfortunately, is end of life in this next month. But here's a really cool email that we used to get, or Seattle 6 still gets today. Hey, here's the block, here's the bad person, contact them, and do something about it. But the good thing is that the great guys over NTT have written a replacement. And so I have to give a shout out to Anurag, who also works for Hurricane, for putting together the next couple slides for me. So BGP Alerter, real-time monitoring, uses RIP, RIS for the table feed, and supports everything we need. You can just download it, generate the config, etc., and then run the tool. Very simple. And so what we did is that we advertised 1.1.1/24 in a test environment, and it worked. So it's very straightforward. There's no reason why any IX operator in this room should not be running it, because it's your responsibility to keep the rest of us safe, because if you have the ability to turn off a port, people are going to listen. So it wasn't really hijacked, Tom. Just want to let you know, and so get off my lawn. So why do we care? How many attacks do you think there's been on LANs in the last couple of years? 1, 2, 10? A few. Unfortunately, my friend Tom Cloudflare was the first one to suffer such a drastic attack, but that was back in 2013. So there's two possible solutions. Good, turn off the offender's port, but best, have the peering LANs tag their ROA with AS0, so it won't propagate through the internet. And as RPI takes over a larger foothold, this will be a great solution. So now on to basic routing security. You must filter your peers. Most networks don't filter their peers, and this is negligent behavior. Here's a giant hijack from China Telecom that took the Department of Energy's /24, and this problem went on for 6 days. This should not be happening in 2020, or it's my hope that we're just get better. Another Iranian state telecom leaked routes that didn't belong to them, and it took quite a while. So over the last year, I've been become more aware of all the different hijacks that are going on, and in every single day there are several hijacks and leaks. But as we deploy better security practices, this will be a diminishing thing, hopefully in the next few years. So I know we can do better. We must filter our peers. So routing security is important in two directions: the routes you advertise and the routes you receive. Starting with the routes you receive, there's 4 different things we can do: prefix counts, AS path, prefix list, and RPKI. At the past companies I worked for a few years ago, the only thing we did was max prefix, and that wasn't a big thing because it wasn't so abused. So my one request is that wherever you are today, make sure that next year, and next month, or as the year progresses, you're doing one better, right? Because we all start someplace. The whole idea is that you're here, you want to make sure you do some kind of improvement so that next year it'll just be better. So considering if you just tighten up your prefix limits, at a previous company I worked for, it would either be standard 30,000 no matter how many routes you were receiving or sending to us versus a customized. So typically in the past companies I worked for, there was over 30,000 routes, you got a special route map with a little tighter. So considering just tightening it up, and that's a good first step. My friends from Japan send out emails almost every day saying, hey, here's our AS path update. So you can move towards doing AS path. The next thing you can do is prefix per neighbor. So this is the next step because we're not all ready to go to RPKI today, but we are working towards that, right? And RPKI, that's where we all would like to get to, but some of us can't just get there yet. But there is a tool out there called BGP-Q3, so there's no reason by the time I see you guys next year, you cannot do a strict prefix filtering. So I challenge you, whatever you're doing today, try to do something more tomorrow. There's several IXPs around the world right now that are using RPKI, and there's several of them. I think there's over 60 now, and you get a complete link of it from Peering Exposed. But yet again, there are several networks, such as Apple and I think it's Amazon as well, that do not pair with route servers. So you're going to have to build a bilateral instead of depending on route servers. Like I said before, we only advertise about 1/3 of our routes over route servers, but if you want to have bidirectional, you get all of our routes. The newest tool is from Hurricane is routing.he.net. So if any one of you in the room are peering with us, you can go to routing.he.net, throw in your AS, and you'll get a page like this. I use Tom because he's my guinea pig for most of my talks and helps me provide data. So the first thing you see here is that you see that the AS is called out AS Cloudflare. And then you can see that the source is PeeringDB, and we get both as v4 and v6 AS set. There's a timestamp right here showing when this was generated, and this is from a test thing, so this date is clearly out of date, but I needed Tom to provide data for the talk. You can see how many routes are accepted and rejected. So this top line says this is even it's good. We're not accepting any of his routes. So here it says filtered. So this is a dump of one of the sessions that Tom has with me, or Cloudflare. And you can see that this one is filtered. External filtered. And why? Can anyone guess really quickly why this would be filtered? Except for Tom? Going, gone. Because it's not his block. He intentionally leaked this subnet for a short period of time so I can capture it in the tool. So if you go to the previous page, back up. You can see that not all of your sessions, all of your networks that you're advertising may not be accepted, so it's your responsibility to contact my NOC if you think that something should be installed that we're not installing. Here's a description of the routing algorithm. I stripped out the first octet to protect the innocent or the guilty. And here's a list of my resources. And again, thanks to Anurag for helping me put together the new BGP monitoring tool. And that's all I got. So any questions? Awesome. Thank you very much. And please peer with Hurricane.
Thanks, Walt.
Sorry for interrupting. I'm Tomohiro from JPNAP. Just some comments for that you mentioned. Actually, recently I have stopped our IX prefix advertisement to the internet. So, so you don't see any our advertisement on your Looking Glass tools. So please check that. Yes.
They took away my router access when I was at Amazon, and I chose not to have enable anymore because I like to sleep at night. Ms. Susan Forney, right next to you, is one of our senior engineers, and she'll be happy to help you dive in and explore anything that you may think is an error.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
In addition to that, and we sometimes detect some our IX prefix advertisement from other AS. So at that time, I tell about that to the AS advertised our prefixes.
Yeah, I can't control the rest of the world. I can only control 6939. But Miss Susan can help you with anything because she's an expert in the field.
Okay, thank you.
Tom-san.
One of the things that all the IXs can do, sorry, this isn't a question, this is a mini presentation.
So you're going to make a statement, not a question, right?
Yes.
Why don't you come up?
Sure.
Can you dress it up as a question?
I can answer that before.
Yeah, I'm not that smart. So one of the things every IX should do is create a rower, Terry said that before, create a rower of your AS block, or your IP space, sorry, to AS0. APNIC permits this, and when you do this, it'll actually mean that no one else will be able to accept it as long as they're validating the routes. It's a really, really simple way to stop other people originating the IX prefix. So let's all do that, please.
And actually, I can't take credit for that thought. Part of the AP, or part of the program committee came up and said that was a pretty good solution, and Tom reinforced it. So, like I said, we're all in this world together. We're all making the place better. So, like Tom did and others have done, do what you can to help others. And together we can make everything better. And spend time with your family. Thanks, and have a good night.
Thanks, Walt. So I think next year we might actually try for a Walt and Tom joint show up there. It seemed to work well. I think we have some peering personals, do we, Raf?
All right, I need to click it. Click, 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 click. All right, can I invite Equinix, TPIX Chief, Docomo Pacific, CATS, Lightwire, and PCH on stage? Thank you. Vijay, stop doing your email.
We do have the BGP Mon to actually look at the IX prefix in the internet, and every day any other prefix or any other peering participants are actually sending the prefix into the internet route. By the time you guys took that snapshot, maybe it is already leaked, and you have to see like 1 hour, 2 hours later, and that prefix would have been gone. But the ROA enablement, definitely we are looking at it. Cool. So, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, we do have our own inbuilt code that actually looks at the looking glass, and we do get the notifications or events, and then we act upon it.
Thank you.
Cool, thanks. So, in terms of the peering personnels, we are actually 9989, 17819, 17949, and we have 15 gig to 40 gig of capacity on the Equinix Connect platform. Our peering policy is actually open, and our peering locations are in various locations in APAC. So if you guys willing to peer with us, please contact me, Vijay, or Raf. Going to the next page.
Yeah, just to add, that's our IP transit network. So
That's right. So, well, I'm actually from Singapore. It's the land of food, land of festivals, land of shopping malls, and year-long sunny weather. So you won't be disappointed if you are visiting any time of the year. That's where I'm coming from. Thanks.
right. I thought you'd do the Singapore's a fine city slide, but anyway.
Hello, everyone. I'm William from Taiwan, Taipei, and I'm representing TPIX with AS 10133 and Chief Telecom 17408. As you may know, the TPIX is Internet Exchange, our traffic is balanced, and Chief Telecom is ISP. Our traffic is also quite balanced because we are having both eyeball and content users and ISPs as our transit users. TPIX has around 190 gigs peak right now, and the Chief is having 80 gigs traffic. And our peering policy is open, of course. We are peering in TPIX, of course, in both our Chief buildings and also in Hong Kong, Hong Kong X, M6, and EIE. And of course, we are expanding. Sorry, I didn't update that we already connected to SGX and JPX, and we are considering expanding more peering points in other regions. And in Europe, we are in M6. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Next. Next, please. Because I'm also the chair of Taiwan NOC, so I want to also invite you to come to Taiwan because there are not many global conferences or events in Taiwan. So TWNOC is one of the events you must come. And next, please. And this is our attendees. Even though we don't have that many attendees, only around 300, but please understand that this is our 4th TWNOC event. So I think we are doing okay. And next, please. Okay, these are the pictures for Taiwan NOC. And due to the current situation here, in Taiwan, Hong Kong, in this region, the virus kind of thing, Taiwan, we are very, afraid of death. So we're very protective. So our next TWNOC will be in the later half of this year. It's not going to be soon. So you have a lot of time to plan your trip to Taiwan. That's it. Thank you.
NTD, Docomo.
How's everyone doing? My name's Ben from Docomo Pacific. We're AS 3605. Most of our traffic is eyeballs, so if you have content, we're looking for it. Our pairing policy is selective, but that's a soft word. We usually pair with anyone, but we're really looking for content for our mutual customers. We are in the usual pairing locations that pretty much everyone else is at: Palo Alto, One Wilshire, Hong Kong, HGC, Mega I, Tokyo Equinix, and JP Nap. I'd like to thank Jonathan for pointing out the Guam Internet Exchange that hasn't gone anywhere. That's actually who knows Mehmet? Mehmet. You know him? He came to Guam for about a week and he pushed us into actually finally putting it together, but fortunately we didn't have a lot of push with that. But all the local carriers are connected there, but it's sort of like running in stealth mode right now, or it's been running in stealth mode for the last almost 10 years. So we haven't been advertising it or anything like that. But we are in Marix also. We're supporting university as well. So next slide. So what to do on Guam? Come to the beaches, hang out, watch the sunset. That's my boy right there. And that is the real picture, no filter. So you can see that 99% of the year. Barbecue, red rice. If you haven't had it, you got to eat it. Kelaguen, which is like a ceviche. For a more accurate cultural experience, you should check out the Valley of the Laddies. Don't go to the hotel dinner shows. That's primarily all Polynesian. But you can still check them out as well. But if you want a more cultural representation, it would be the Laddie of the Valleys. Valley of the Laddies, sorry. And that's it.
Thank you. It looks beautiful. Can't wait to go.
Hello everyone, my name is Bell. I'm representative of CAT IAG from CAT Telecom. Our AS number is 4651. The traffic profile is mostly inbound, and the traffic level is around 300 to 500 gigs. And peering policy is open. For peering location, we connect with Equinix Singapore, Hong Kong IX, and BBIX Singapore, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. And we also connect to COSI, Any2, APRICOT, DE-CIX, LINX, and LIX. If you would like to peer with us, please contact me or my colleague B, or send email to peering@cat.net.th. Next slide. Yes, I'm from Thailand. There are many places you have to visit in Thailand. I recommend in Bangkok you have to visit the Grand Palace in Bangkok, or if you would like to travel with the nature, you have to visit Chilosu waterfall. And if you like the sea, you have to visit south of Thailand, such as PP Islands in Krabi. Or if you would like to enjoy shopping and eating street food, I recommend Amphawa Floating Market. And for the food, we have many Thai food. I think everyone knows durian. Durian is very delicious. And for the food, I recommend Pad Thai and Tom Yam Goong. But Tom Yam Goong is spicy, but it's very delicious. Okay, please come to Thailand and don't forget to peer with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lightwave.
Hello, I'm Chris Browning from Lightwire. We're a relatively or comparatively small ISP in New Zealand. Our heritage is all of the hard-to-reach places, so our heritage is a rural network, picking up all of the remote areas. We're eyeball network. Current traffic volumes are around 20 gig. Pairing policy is open. However, one of the things about New Zealand that came up in sort of some of the other areas is we don't really know how to do bilats. So I'm still learning how to do bilats, but New Zealand very much relies on the route servers. So there are some bilats. I know some people in this room I should do bilats with. Locations, we pair Mega AX Sydney, New South Wales AX in Sydney, Mega AX in Auckland and Auckland AX. And I really have to shoot myself. We also pair a Christchurch AX, which was launched a couple of days ago, and I didn't even put it on the slide. PeeringDB entries up there. Chris, email, yep. I didn't want to focus on New Zealand too much because, you know, you've all seen the various movies, Middle Earth, that's New Zealand. I thought I'd focus on Hamilton, which doesn't look like those places. So it's sort of things, it's the safest city in New Zealand. I say that in terms of networking. We don't have fault lines and we don't have volcanoes, and we're the only city that can say that. We also don't have an ocean by us. So we are the networking-wise the safest city from network disruption. And ironically, the subsea cables lands near us and goes straight through the city and doesn't break out and goes out to Auckland, which is 40 volcanoes or something. So yeah, we're hoping to fix that. The only thing we're kind of really known for is our gardens, and we have a river that, unlike Melbourne, which makes good use of theirs, as you can see, ours is just covered by trees. We don't know how to use it, but that's kind of Hamilton. Thank you.
Yeah, you can just get a pair of pliers and just break out that cable yourself. All right. Next one, last one, back to Clearinghouse.
Hello everyone, I'm Govind Strasser from Packet Clearinghouse, AS42, AS3856. We operate global Anycast DNS network, public looking glass, and route collectors around the world in around 200 internet exchange points, including multiple ones in Australia and APAC region. We have open peering policy, and we keep an up-to-date data in our website and PeeringDB. You can contact us at peering@pshares.net. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our Peering Personal session. Gavin?
That is the end of the session. We are a bit late, so I think we have about 15 minutes before we come back in here. Again, tickets for this evening. Who's got the tickets, Ralph? Is Gwen still in the room? Everyone run it, Ralph. Otherwise, there'll be some more in here next session. See you back here shortly.